Hello, everyone. Today I'll be presenting Chapter 12, which covers the ethical theory of Immanuel Kant. Kant was a philosopher from the 1700s whose ideas still influence how we think about rights, justice, and morality today. Something important about Kant is that he cared more about why we make choices than what happens afterwards. His key question was, what ought I to do? Meaning, what is my moral obligation as a rational person? Throughout this presentation, I'll explain the basics of Kant's approach, how he thinks duty works, and why he believes reason, not emotions, not religion, not consequences, is the true guide to morality. Now, who was Immanuel Kant? Kant lived in Königsberg, which is now Kaliningrad. He rarely traveled and lived a very routine life. But despite that, he's one of the most influential thinkers in world history. Kant believed humans are unique because we have the ability to reason. This means we can think logically and recognize moral rules that apply to everyone. He wasn't against religion, but he believed morality shouldn't depend on religious rules because different religions teach different things. Reason, on the other hand, is something we all share. His main ethical question, what ought I to do, pushes us to look at our actions in a deeper way. Instead of asking what we want or what will get us the best outcome, Kant wants us to ask what duty requires from us as human beings. Why motive matters. One thing that makes Kant stand out from other moral thinkers is his focus on intention. For him, the only truly good thing without limitation is a good will, which means choosing to do what's right just because it's right. In other words, the moral value of an action doesn't come from the results, it comes from your reasons for doing it. For example, imagine two people donate money. One donates because they want praise and attention, and the other donates because they believe helping others is their duty. Kant says the second person's action has more worth, while the first person does not, even though they gave us the same amount. This is different from systems like utilitarianism, which care about the consequences. Kant cares about your internal commitment to duty. Hypothetical versus categorical imperatives. Kant explained that not all rules are moral ones. First, we have hypothetical imperatives, which are basically unconditional instructions. They sound like, if you want X, then you ought to do Y. For example, if you want good grades, you ought to study. These are based on personal goals. They're not moral obligations. Then we have categorical imperatives, which are unconditional. These all tell you what you ought to do no matter what your desires are. They apply to everyone simply because we're rational beings. For example, you ought to tell the truth applies whether you want to or not. Kant believed all moral duties come from categorical imperatives because morality has to be universal, not dependent on personal wants. Categorical imperative number one, universal law. Kant's first rule for testing a moral action is the universal law test. A maxim is the universal rule behind your action. Basically, the reason you would use to defend what you're doing. Kant says only act on a maxim you could will to become a universal law for everyone. So before you act, you should ask, what if everyone did this all the time? For example, imagine your maxim is it's okay to lie when it benefits me. Now you never realize that if everyone lied whenever it helped them, trust would break down completely. promising will become impossible. The very idea of the truth would stop functioning because a rule destroys itself when universalized lying fails the test. And that means it's morally wrong. No exceptions. Categorical imperative number two, respect for a person. The second formulation focuses on human dignity. Kant says we must always treat people as ends in themselves, meaning their goals, choices, and humanity matter. We must never treat someone as a mere means, like an object or a tool for our benefit. That means we can't lie to people, manipulate them, use them, or treat them like objects. Even if doing so would bring some good outcome, it's still morally wrong because it violates their autonomy. This idea is the foundation for modern human rights, including fair trials, anti-slavery principles, freedom of speech, and basic human dignity for all. Kant believed every rational person has absolute value, and that value must always be respected. Categorical imperative number three, kingdom of ends. The third formulation asks us to imagine a world where everyone treats others with respect and acts based on moral laws. Kant calls this kingdom of ends. In this ideal community, each person follows moral rules not because they're forced to, but because they choose to, using reason. Kant says that we are all moral lawmakers, meaning our actions express the kind of world we think people should live in. So when you act, think, would this be acceptable in a community of moral, rational beings? If not, then it's not morally acceptable. This pushes us to think about the bigger picture of how our actions shape society. Conflicting duties and why Kant still matters. One major criticism of Kant is that his rules sometimes feel too strict. For example, in a real situation where telling the truth could cause harm, like lying to protect someone from danger, Kant still says you ought not to lie. This leads to the idea of conflicting duties, like the duty to tell the truth versus the duty to protect life. Some philosophers after Kant, such as W.D. Ross, try to fix this by saying we have multiple duties that can be balanced depending on the situation. Some modern conscience thinkers say true duty conflicts are rare. If you think there's a conflict, you might need to rethink the maxim. Even with these debates, Kant's ideas are extremely influential today. His work shapes how we talk about human rights, fairness, justice, equality, and the idea that every person deserves respect. His message is the more is sorry. His message is that morality is not about what benefits us. It's about what we ought to do as rational human beings.